Hey guys, tonight we begin with the remarkable lives and incredible resilience of medieval peasants, the everyday heroes who, despite the odds, managed to survive some of the coldest and most brutal nights in history. You won't be watching this story, you'll be living it. Because for the next little while, you are that peasant. The wind outside is already howling, and your teeth are already chattering. The fire is dying. The goat is eyeing your sleeping spot. And winter doesn't care if you've eaten. Winter doesn't care if your kid is coughing. Winter is knocking, and you, my friend, are about to answer. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this comfortably. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The cold doesn't wait for permission. It slips under the door like a thief. You feel it first in your toes, your cloth-wrapped, clumsily bundled, already numb toes. Then it climbs, knees, back, neck. There's no such thing as cozy in your world, just less miserable. Your hut is barely a hut. It's a glorified pile of mud and sticks with all the insulation of a wet sponge. The walls crack when the wind howls. And tonight, the wind is singing opera, loudly, off-key. You shiver as you stare at the fire, a sad, wheezing puddle of orange, barely clinging to life. You nudge it with a stick, hoping for a spark. No luck. You consider spitting on it to see if it'll react. That's how grim things are. This isn't a game. Cold in medieval times doesn't just mean discomfort. It means dying slowly, shivering into sleep, and not waking up again. You'd think your body would get used to it, but no. Every winter is like meeting an old enemy who's learned a few new tricks, and none of them are kind. You wrap your cloak tighter. It smells like goat, because it was a goat, possibly still is, judging by how the fur keeps shedding into your mouth. You breathe in through your nose like your mother taught you. Mouth breathing in weather like this means hacking up your lungs by breakfast. The kids are already piled in the corner, a heap of wool, limbs, and complaints. Your youngest has wedged himself under the dog. Smart. The dog doesn't mind. The dog is thrilled. It's indoors. It's winning. You glance around the room. There is no room. You have one, just one. Kitchen, bedroom, nursery, barn, pantry, all generously represented in 10 square meters of uneven dirt. Dirt that, by the way, is currently frozen solid except for the patch by the door where the snow keeps melting into a slush puddle of despair. Above you, the thatched roof is having an identity crisis. It's technically a roof, but also, it's technically a sponge. You eye the dark patch near the center where the drip has been forming all evening. It hasn't dripped yet, but you know it will. Probably right into your stew. And speaking of stew, it's there in the pot, hanging crookedly over the fire. Turnip, onion, barley, thick enough to spread with a knife. It's more a suggestion of food than an actual meal, but it's hot. And hot in winter is the closest you get to luxury. You ladle out some into a wooden bowl that's cracked down the side. You plug it with a thumb and eat fast. One hand, one thumb, 2 burns. Congratulations, it's dinner. A cow shifts in the shadows behind you, letting out a sound halfway between a sigh and a fart. You don't flinch. This is normal. This is home. You are used to your bedroom mooing at midnight. There are worse sounds, like the one the roof makes just before it leaks. Historians still argue whether peasant homes were livable by the standards of their day, or whether they were basically damp coffins with better acoustics. You lean toward the latter, but you survive, not because of what you have, but because of what you know. You know that tonight you have to sleep close. Closer than comfort, closer than dignity. Everyone will pile together like a mismatched pile of laundry with a heartbeat. Arms over ribs, heads on bellies, feet in someone's armpit. You know the cow's breath, though fragrant, adds 2 degrees to the room. You know which part of the floor isn't currently iced over. You know that if you don't bank the fire before sleep, the coals will die, and morning will start with frost inside your nose. So you crouch by the hearth and scoop ashes carefully. You spread them over the glowing coals like a blanket. Not too tight, not too loose, just right. Just enough to keep the fire breathing till morning. This is fire banking. Your grandmother taught you. Her grandmother taught her. It's less a technique and more a sacred rite. Everyone has their opinion. Use dry ash. Use damp ash. Let it breathe. Suffocate it gently. You nod like you know which is right. You don't. You just hope. The air stinks of smoke and wet wool. Your nose doesn't care. You haven't really smelled anything pleasant since August. You sit near the fire until the warmth chases the numbness out of your fingers. You think of how your neighbors are doing. Old Mags hasn't been to the market in 2 days. Her chimney's been silent. You'll check on her tomorrow. Or someone will. That's how this works. You survive together, or you don't survive at all. You lie down. It's not a bed. It's hay mostly. Some straw. Some rushes, possibly a dead mouse. You nestle into the crunch like a condemned criminal into a mattress made of cornflakes. You pull the wool cloak over your head and listen. The fire pops once. The cow shifts. Someone snores gently. Probably the baby. You close your eyes. The wind slaps the wall again. And you think, not for the first time, about how many people won't wake up tomorrow, but maybe you will. You probably will, because you've learned. You've learned to wrap your feet in dry rags, to sleep next to the dog, to chew your stew slow and breathe through your nose. You've learned to laugh about it when the lice get too friendly. And most importantly, you've learned to keep the fire alive. You take one last breath of smoky air and let your body go slack. Your last thought before sleep. Tomorrow, maybe you'll steal some straw from the neighbor's barn. Survival tip number 238. Never admit it out loud. Morning doesn't arrive with a sunrise. It arrives with a drip. Ice water right onto your forehead. You jolt awake, not because you were well rested, but because cold water has just declared war on your face. Somewhere above, the thatch has given in. It couldn't hold back the melted frost anymore, and now your skull is the designated drainage point. Lucky you. You sit up. Everything cracks. Knees, back, neck, possibly your soul. The fire is still smoldering under the banked ashes. A faint glow tells you the embers survived the night. You smile. It's a small, crooked victory, but in a world where frostbite plays for keeps, it matters. You shuffle over, cough once, dry, gravelly, dramatic, and poke at the fire with a stick you sharpened months ago for this very purpose. Your fingers are stiff, but the motions are familiar. Add dry twigs. A breath gentle and slow. Sparks jump. Flames rise. You just bought yourself another day. Now that the light is better, you finally take stock of your home. And by home, you mean the architectural equivalent of a brave little toaster. Wattle and daub walls greet you with all the charm of a crumbling sandwich. Sticks laid in a rough weave, then slathered with mud, straw, and, yes, dung, cow dung, maybe horse. You've stopped asking. Why dung? Because it's sticky, cheap, and available in bulk. Historians still argue whether peasants used dung out of desperation or whether it was considered a perfectly logical building material at the time. Either way, you're surrounded by it. So much for open concept living. The walls breathe with the wind. You press your hand to one, cold, damp, slightly squishy. A patch of last night's repair, where you jammed moss into a crack, is already molding. Excellent. A tiny ecosystem all your own. You duck slightly as you move through the room. Not because the ceiling is low, which it is, but because if you stand too tall, your head brushes the underside of the thatched roof and knocks dust into your hair. Thatched roofs, for all their rustic beauty, have two hobbies: leaking and shedding, like a golden retriever in the rain. And then there's the floor. If dirt sounds too romantic, try frozen swamp. After last night's snowmelt, the earth has absorbed just enough moisture to betray you. One step, and you feel the cold rise through your soles. Your feet are wrapped in 3 layers of rags, and still wince. You shuffle to avoid it, gliding like a very tired ghost. You're not alone in the house, of course. Your family is here. 5 bodies, 2 goats, a dog, a chicken, and your cousin's child who may or may not be living here permanently. It's hard to say. The livestock stir slowly, rising like the undead. The cow lets out a long, grumbling moan that translates roughly to "coffee now." You relate deeply. In one corner, a chicken hops indignantly onto a stool and glares at you. Last night, she slept on your pillow. This morning, she's demanding rent. You'd argue, but she lays eggs. And in this house, that makes her management. You step carefully to the wall, pull away a scrap of hide that functions as a window cover, and squint outside. Bright snow, sharp wind, fields sleeping under frost, smoke rising from 2 chimneys in the village. Not 3. You take note. Tomorrow you'll check on that 3rd house. No one survives winter alone. You move to the back wall, where yesterday's draft made a new entrance. The wind carved a thin tunnel through a weak patch in the mud. You push your finger into it. It crumbles. No good. You grab a rag, some damp straw, and, yes, more dung. You slap together a plug. It steams faintly. You don't think about it too hard. Your hands ache with cold, but you keep working. You know every crack, every draft, like a surgeon, but instead of stitching wounds, you smear manure on walls. You do it because this wall is the only thing between your baby and hypothermia. And your house. It's tired. The roof sags in the middle. A rat chewed through one of the corner posts last week. You saw it run across your bowl shelf. You named it Reginald the Reckless. But this hut, this patchwork of hope and hazard, it's your whole world. It's seen births, funerals, meals, plagues, love, and winter tests it every single night. You look up. A patch of sunlight breaks through the thatch and lands on the hearth. It feels like a miracle. You lean toward it. Warmth and light, both in short supply. You sit on the edge of the straw pile that serves as your bed, pick straw out of your tunic, and sigh. You're already thinking about tonight. You need to gather more moss. Maybe steal a better cloth for the drafty corner. Last year's cloak isn't cutting it anymore. It smells like mildew and disappointment. Historians still debate whether peasants lived with such constant dread of their own ceilings caving in, or whether, like you, they simply accepted collapse as a seasonal hobby. You're not worried. If the roof goes, at least it'll be dramatic. A child stirs, yawns, and immediately asks for breakfast. You glance at the pot. A scrap of turnip floats like a tiny ship in a sea of barley glue. The chicken clucks in judgment. You spoon out what you can, wrap a hot stone from the fire in cloth, and slide it under the kid's tunic. It's not fancy. It's not even effective, but it buys you warmth for an hour, maybe 2. Then you gear up for the day. 3 tunics. 1 with a hole under the arm, 1 with a questionable stain, and 1 that technically belonged to your cousin before he moved. Layered, you feel like a medieval onion. But at least you'll be a warm onion. Your boots aren't boots. They're wood clogs stuffed with straw and hope. They creak with every step, but they get you across the icy yard to the shed, where you'll fetch more kindling, check on the sheep, and maybe sneak a moment alone with the sky. You pause before stepping out. You glance back at the hut. The dung wall patch is steaming. The fire is alive. The baby's asleep under the dog. And the chicken, still staring at you like it knows your secrets. This is winter in a medieval peasant home, and you've already survived one more morning than some. You step outside and instantly regret it. The cold smacks your face like an unpaid debt. Wind slides into every seam of your clothes like it's trying to borrow your bones. Your breath fogs the air, then promptly freezes on your eyelashes. You blink, and it crunches. You clutch your tunic tighter and shuffle toward the lean-to at the side of the house, the so-called shed, which is really more of a suggestion made from planks and optimism. The door creaks open with a reluctant groan, like even the wood thinks this is a terrible idea. Inside, chaos, kindling, damp hay, 1 angry rooster, and your neighbor's old wheelbarrow that you borrowed last summer and never returned. Priorities. You grab a bundle of sticks, brush off the snow, and head back toward the house, your feet crunching over frozen mud like stale bread crusts. But then your foot slips, just a little, enough to remind you that mud never really dies in this village. It just hibernates. You catch yourself before falling, but your knee pops like a questionable pastry. You mutter under your breath. Nothing profane, just a medieval sigh, long, weary, and containing at least 3 syllables of complaint. You pause before going back in. You glance around the yard. Everything is still. Trees stiff with frost. A lone raven on the fence post, judging you. That 3rd chimney, still no smoke. Not a good sign. You trudge back inside. The house feels slightly warmer now. Someone's rearranged the bedding pile. The cow is now facing east, which your aunt insists is good luck. The baby is chewing on a wooden spoon like it owes him money. The chicken is still staring. You kneel by the hearth and feed the fire. 1 stick, 2. A prayer to Saint Bridget because she's good with fire, or was. No one's sure anymore, but you say her name just in case. Superstition, maybe, but it's warmer than logic. The hearth smokes a bit, then steadies. Flames lick the air and cast flickering shadows across the walls. The kids gather near, drawn by heat and habit. You pass round hot stones, wrap their hands, and mumble the morning blessing. Then it's time for repairs. The roof, as you know, is more ambitious than practical. thatched straw, layered thick with reeds and hope. Supposed to keep the rain out. Sometimes it even does. But winter finds every gap. You climb onto the stool, wobbly, probably cursed, and reach up to pat the underside of the roof. Your fingers find a wet patch, cold, slick. You press gently. A drop falls right onto your face. Naturally, you sigh and climb down. Time for roof triage. You gather materials, more straw, old rags, a handful of clay. You patch from the inside as best you can. Push, smear, mutter. Medieval home improvement is mostly cursing and mud. Historians still argue whether thatched roofs were carefully engineered weather barriers or just socially acceptable bird nests. From inside your soggy hut, you're leaning hard toward bird nest. The cow farts, the baby giggles, the roof drips. Life goes on. Later in the morning, you head outside again. This time, not for wood. You're heading to the marsh. Why? Because that's where the good stuff grows. You trudge through slush and sludge. Your clogs suck at the mud like they've fallen in love with it. Each step is an effort. The wind is relentless, tearing at your sleeves like a jealous ex. You arrive at the marsh edge and scan for moss. Dry, spongy moss is your insulation gold. It fills cracks, lines boots, even serves as emergency toilet paper. Don't ask. You gather it carefully, not too wet, not too thin. You pack it into a cloth bag and whisper thanks to the land. Old habits, old beliefs. Your mother said the marsh spirits get angry if you're greedy. So you leave a bit behind, just in case. A frog croaks nearby. You blink. A frog. In winter, you squint, spot the tiny creature on a rock. Alive. Barely. You stare at each other for a moment. Two survivors equally baffled. Then it hops away, probably to judge you later. Back home, the patching begins. You press moss into wall seams, plug the new draft near the door, and sprinkle straw over the soggy corner to keep it dryish. Nothing perfect, just enough to hold until spring. Maybe. Your spouse returns from the commons with a bundle of twigs and a look that says, "Don't ask." You don't. Instead, you compare notes. 1 missing neighbor, 2 cold children, 3 burned fingers. Standard winter count. Lunch is a bowl of porridge, mostly oats, some onion, 1 heroic bean. You eat slowly, savoring the heat. It tastes like glue and sorrow, but it's warm. You eye the fire. Still alive. You smile. For now. And that's the rhythm of the day. Patch, feed, breathe. Repeat. You check the fire every hour like a nervous parent. You huddle near the heat when you can. You stretch animal skins across the doorframe for extra wind protection. And every so often, you look out at the snow and wonder if it'll ever end. Spoiler, it won't. Not yet. But you're still here. And that's something. Night doesn't fall. It slides over the village like a lid closing on a pot. 1 minute, the sky is a tired gray. The next, black ink. And the temperature. It drops like it forgot to break. You're inside by then, of course. No one with half a toe's worth of sense lingers outside after dusk. The wind has picked up again, carving through the gaps in your walls like a burglar with cold fingers. You've plugged what you can. The rest? You'll deal with it by becoming furniture. You know the drill. Tonight's strategy is snuggle or die. Trying. You start with the baby. Always the first to bundle. You wrap him in a tunic, a shawl, a sheepskin that still smells faintly of sheep. He fusses for a minute, then burrows like a beetle into the crook of your spouse's elbow. Warmth achieved. Next comes the middle child. She's already got 3 layers on, 2 of which she refuses to remove, even for washing. You slide a hot stone under her blanket. She grins at you like you're a wizard. You feel like one briefly. Your eldest. He's trying to sleep under the bench again, convinced it's warmer there. It isn't, but you let him. Kids need small delusions to get through winter. So do adults. The animals are already inside. The cow's in the corner, chewing cud and radiating heat like a furnace that moves. The goat is by the door, plotting. The dog is under the stool, snoring through one nostril. The chicken has taken the baby's pillow. Again, you don't argue. She's earned it. You dim the room, by which you mean you let the fire fade just enough that you can still see without being seen. Shadows lengthen, the corners go quiet. Outside, the wind scrapes across the roof, testing your repairs. You lie down, no mattress, just straw, thick in some places, damp in others. You try not to think about what lives inside it. You shuffle until your back finds a warm patch. You pull your cloak tight and reach behind to tap your spouse's shoulder. Time to form the bundle. There's an art to peasant snuggling. It's not romantic. It's not cute. It's strategic. You press together back to back. Your youngest curls into your legs. The dog slides between feet. The eldest, sensing warmth redistribution, wriggles up to your chest. And the goat? The goat climbs over all of you and settles near your head. Congratulations. You are now a medieval lasagna. Heat rises slowly. Your body starts to thaw from the inside out. Your toes still hurt, but less. You can feel your nose again. You breathe, shallow and slow. No sudden inhales. Cold air cuts like glass if you're careless. This is how your ancestors slept. Not alone. Never alone. Heat was communal, so was everything. You slept in heaps, in piles, in layers, in love, or at least in tolerance. Historians still debate whether families really slept this close together nightly, or only during severe weather. You know the truth. Every night is severe weather in winter. Every night is a test of how many elbows you can dodge in pursuit of warmth. You drift off, not fully asleep, but not quite awake either. The fire crackles. Someone coughs. A chicken shuffles. The goat emits a small, smug bleat. All is as it should be. Then the baby starts to cry. You jolt upright, half from reflex, half from guilt. Your spouse groans and pulls the baby close. The child isn't cold, just awake. Again. You sigh, fumble for a wooden rattle, and make soft noises. The dog looks at you, unimpressed. You're not winning awards tonight. Eventually, the child quiets. You reconfigure the snuggle pile, back in place. Heat restored. Sleep resumes. Midway through the night, someone farts. Loudly, confidently, possibly the cow. No one reacts. This is the medieval norm. You've learned to ignore it, just as you've learned to sleep with the constant itch of fleas, the scent of soot in your nose, the vague ache in your knees from days spent crouched or hauling buckets. Comfort is not a standard. It's a moving target. Tonight you've hit mostly warm and no fresh leaks. That's practically a holiday. You dream briefly of firewood, piles of it, dry, neat stacks that burn with a clean hiss and smell like pine. You don't have pine. You don't even have dry. But in the dream, it crackles like applause. You wake an hour later to a shivering foot, yours, poking out from the pile. You tuck it back in, muttering something that might be a prayer or a curse. Hard to tell. You check the fire, still breathing. You check the kids, all present, one drooling. You check the goat. She's licking your hair. Fine. Whatever. Outside, the wind howls again, furious at being ignored. You smile faintly, curl deeper into your human burrito and think, you made it through another day. Barely. But that's how it works here. One night at a time, morning again, and this time it's not a drip or a scream that wakes you, it's silence. You blink into the pale blue light filtering through the thatch. The wind stopped. No howling, no rattling, no angry tree branches scratching at the roof like impatient ghosts. Just stillness, which is suspicious. You sit up, cautiously peeling yourself from the snuggle pile. Your back cracks in 3 places. Your neck adds a 4th for flair. The goat shifts in protest. The chicken pecks your foot with attitude. The baby remains unconscious, blissfully unaware of his cold, crumb-strewn kingdom. You glance around. Everyone's breathing. That's a relief. You check the fire. Still glowing. Barely. The coals are blackened, shy. You nudge them with your trusty stick, whispering sweet nothings like, "Come on, you stubborn miracle." A single ember winks at you. You feed it twigs, carefully, lovingly, like it's your last hope, which, realistically, it is. It catches. You breathe easier. You crawl over to your bed. A heap of straw, old furs, and the faint scent of damp livestock, and dig for your outer cloak. It's still wet. Of course it is, but it's marginally warmer than air. So on it goes. You feel like you're wrapping yourself in a used sponge. Fashion. Breakfast is a test of optimism. You scrape the pot. A few strands of onion. A chunk of carrot so hard it might qualify as a weapon. You toss in some barley and water, stir, and pretend it's stew. The kids won't complain. They know better. The goat, on the other hand, complains loudly. You ignore her. Today, you're getting fancy. Today, you're making a bed upgrade. You step outside and breathe in deeply. Mist hangs low over the fields like an exhausted sigh. Frost clings to every branch. Your breath puffs out in a little cloud, and for a second, you imagine you're a dragon. A very underfed, underpaid dragon. You make your way toward the haystack. Not the big communal one. That's for animals. You have a secret stash. You shove your hand deep into the pile and grab a fistful. Dry, coarse, perfect. You bring it back home like a treasure. Your spouse watches you arrange it on the sleeping pile. You fluff it, layer it. You even tuck in the edges. The kids cheer. The goat snorts. The chicken lays an egg, possibly in approval. Historians still argue whether peasants actually maintained bedding regularly or simply collapsed where they fell. You know better. You've seen what happens when you don't change the straw for 3 weeks. Bugs, smells, and something that once might have been a beetle trying to claim tenancy. You line the bed, smooth it. You even sprinkle some dried herbs to mask the mustiness. Lavender, number just mint you found near the creek last month. Smells almost decent, like damp toothpaste. Good enough. You reward yourself with a moment near the fire. You sit cross-legged, stretch your arms, and listen. Outside, birds are singing. Birds. In winter. That's never a good omen. It usually means the snow's coming back soon. The children argue over who gets to sit closest to the hearth. You solve the problem by assigning them jobs. One fetches water. One gathers more straw. One feeds the animals. They groan, but obey. In medieval parenting, delegation is survival. You use the quiet moment to fix your boots. Calling them boots is generous. They're wood clogs with bits of leather tied on, stuffed with straw, cloth, and increasingly, regret. You scrape off the dried muck, replace the straw, and mutter a wish that your cousin who borrowed your real boots last winter finally gets a pebble stuck under his toenail. A big one. Once your feet are semi-protected again, you take a look at the walls. Cracks are forming again. The patch from 3 days ago is sagging. The moss you used is growing mold. You sigh. Out comes the repair kit, a basket of straw, clumps of old clay, and yes, your favorite tool, fresh dung. You mix it all together into a paste that would horrify anyone from the future. Then you get to work. Slather, press smooth, repeat. The kids come back in, stomping and laughing. One throws snow inside. You don't yell. You just give them the look. The one that says, "You want to freeze? Be my guest." The snowball quietly disappears. You patch the last crack and admire your work. The walls look lumpy, but solid, like a cake made by someone who's only heard of cakes secondhand. It'll hold. Probably. Lunch is ready. The stew is now thicker. More like porridge, really. Everyone eats in silence. Slurping is mandatory. Complaining is not. After the meal, you rest. Not sleep, just rest. A pause. You sit by the fire, your back against the wall, the baby on your lap, the chicken beside you like a small, judgmental cat. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you forget the cold. You forget the wind. You forget the endless tasks. You remember warmth, laughter, sunlight on the stream. That summer 2 years ago when you had enough barley to trade for honey. You remember what it's like to not be in survival mode. Then the goat sneezes on your leg. Back to reality. You check the fire. Still going. You check the ceiling. Still holding. You check your hands. Still dry, cracked, but strong. You've survived another stretch of winter, and tonight you'll do it again. With your upgraded straw bed, with your patched walls, with your strange but reliable family of humans and animals. You are a peasant, but tonight you're also an architect, a parent, a veterinarian, and a fire priest. Multitasking, the true medieval skill. You sit by the hearth as the sky darkens again, watching the fire hiss quietly as a fresh log settles into embers. It's a gentle sound, warm, almost alive, and you treasure it like gold. Not because it's beautiful, because it's rare. Outside, the light fades. The wind hasn't picked up yet, but you know better than to trust a still evening in winter. The cold doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it just arrives, like a thief who knows exactly where you hide the bread. You shift your position and start the evening ritual. First, the coals. You poke them gently, coaxing the brightest to the center, then a dry twig, then another. You place them like offerings, with the reverence of someone who understands that fire in this house is a god with a bad temper. Once the flame starts licking upward, you add a small log, one of the precious few left from your bundle. You saved it for tonight because the forecast, according to your neighbor's left knee, is unholy cold. The fire catches. Your body exhales. You prepare dinner. If that word feels generous, it's because it is. Tonight's menu is root stew with bark garnish, onion, turnip, and a few wrinkled beans that may have been peas in a past life. A splash of vinegar to fool your tongue into thinking it's non-water flavored with sadness. You stir the pot while the room warms slightly. Not much, just enough to make the breath you exhale vanish half a second faster. Then comes the true test, keeping the fire alive until morning. You've learned the art of banking coals, the delicate game of stacking ash over embers without smothering them. It's like tucking in a sleeping dragon. You need it to rest, not die. But the fire's more temperamental tonight. The logs don't want to catch. The wind outside has shifted, breathing through the cracks in the walls, throwing the draft in strange directions. Your patchwork insulation is holding for now, but you can feel the tension in the air. You squat by the hearth, elbows on knees, and glare at the flame like a disappointed parent. You whisper a prayer. St. Dunstan, maybe. He's handy with metal. Might like fire. You're not sure. You throw in St. Lawrence just to cover the food angle. Can't hurt. The baby whimpers. You glance back. Your spouse is already moving, wrapping him tighter, murmuring nonsense songs passed down from people who probably didn't survive their own winters. You take the opportunity to bank the coals. Not too much ash, not too little, just enough to let the embers breathe while hiding from the draft. You use the flat end of a charred stick to spread the ash. Slow, sweeping motions like smoothing a bedsheet. Then you place a few small chips of wood on top, not to burn now, but to greet the flame in the morning. This is the moment you realize you're holding your breath. You exhale. It's done. You sit back on your heels, stretch your sore fingers, and press them to your chest to reheat. Fire is a flimsy god, but it's your god. The chicken clucks behind you, possibly in approval, possibly because someone stepped on a beetle it was eyeing. The dog twitches in its sleep, dreaming of rabbits or warm barns or cheese. You wish you were dreaming of cheese, but instead, you're reviewing the fire layout in your head, where the ash is thickest, which side the logs fell toward, how high the embers are stacked. You'll check it again before bed, maybe twice, because if it dies, you'll wake to frost on your blanket, to blue lips on your child, to air that cuts instead of flows. Historians still debate how effective medieval fire banking really was, whether peasants succeeded in keeping hearths alive night after night with just ash and instinct. You don't need debate. You have muscle memory and the burn scars to prove it. Your spouse hands you a bowl of stew. You eat together in silence. No one speaks. It's not that you're tired of talking. It's that the fire's finally burning steady. And to speak now would be to risk jinxing it. The kids eat slowly. They've learned not to complain. Not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Food means warmth. Warmth means another day. You clean the bowls with old cloth, scrape the bits into a pan for the dog and chicken, and add a few ashes to the pan to discourage rats. Reginald, the bold one, usually needs more than ashes, but it's a start. The shadows have lengthened. Your patched window cloth flutters with the cold creeping in. You move into the next ritual, the sleeping arrangement. Same as before, but tonight with a twist. Tonight, you add a heated stone to the bedding pile. It's been warming near the hearth all day. You wrap it in wool, slide it to the center of the straw bed like a holy relic. Everyone cheers, quietly. It's not much, but it might keep a spine from freezing. You line up again, cow in corner, goat near door, dog between legs, children forming an uneven line like fallen dominoes. You slide into the mass, feeling the warmth trapped between limbs and skin and rags. It's not comfort, but it's warmth. You wrap your cloak tighter, rest your head on the shared straw pillow, and stare at the roof. The leak hasn't returned. The repair you made with the old breadcloth is holding. You didn't expect it to. You smile a little. Small victories. The fire crackles once, a loud snap, as if in agreement. Outside, the wind has returned. Not howling. Not yet. Just probing, sliding through branches, sneaking along walls, looking for the weak spot. You roll onto your side, facing the wall. You press your back against your spouse's, and you think, you've done all you can tonight. Now it's up to ash and breath and luck. You wake up to a warm tongue dragging across your cheek. Not romantic, Not a morning kiss, just the cow, investigating whether your hair might be edible. You groan, push her face away, and sit up slowly. The fire's still alive, barely. The coals are blinking like sleepy eyes under ash. You manage to bank it well. Small miracle. Maybe St. Dunstan did listen. The room smells like smoke, sour milk, and humanity. You'd complain, but after so many winters, your nose has given up. You breathe it in like perfume from a life that refuses to quit. You stretch. Your joints pop like popcorn. The dog growls softly in its sleep. The chicken is already up, preening in a sunbeam that snuck through a gap in the thatch. You glance toward the corner. Your spouse is still curled around the baby, who has somehow migrated upward and is now sleeping across their head like a small, loud hat. You chuckle softly. Then the goat farts. And that's the morning alarm. You prod the fire back to life, this time with urgency. The air has that crisp bite, the kind that means frostbite within 15 minutes if you dawdle. You feed the flame your best kindling. It rewards you with reluctant warmth. Breakfast is the same as always. Root slop, barely warmed, with a spoon of leftover fat if you're lucky. You are. Barely. The kids stir one by one and start their daily ritual of complaining about who stole whose blanket, who snored like a cow, and who kicked whom in the ribs. You ignore them. The cow snored louder than all of them combined. Then you begin the second ritual of the day. Animal maintenance. The cow gets first attention. She's your heater, your milk machine, and if things get dire, a walking emergency protein source. You stroke her side, feel the bone beneath the hide, and sigh. She's getting thin. Winter takes from everyone. You milk her carefully, whispering nonsense to keep her calm. Steam rises from the pail, the only warmth she'll give you today. You press your forehead against her side. For one quiet second, it feels like a hug. Next, the goat. She's moody, vindictive, possibly possessed. But she gives milk too, sometimes. Today, she tries to nibble your braid. You accept it as affection. Then you check the chicken. She's laid an egg. You nearly cry. Fresh egg in midwinter is better than gold. You hold it like it might break from joy. You hand it to your eldest, who stares at it like it's a blessing. He immediately runs to show his siblings. They'll argue over who gets a bite. You'll divide it evenly down to the last crumb. And that's when the smell hits you. Not the usual smells. Those are always present. No, this one is new. Sharper, sweeter. You sniff the air like a hunting dog. The fire's steady. The cow's clean. The goat hasn't peed on anything important. You walk slowly toward the corner, then lift the fur pile by the wall. Moldavian straw mold. You swear under your breath. Nothing that'll get you smote, just enough to release steam. Mold in the bedding means moisture. Moisture means sickness. And you cannot afford sickness. You rip out the moldy straw with brutal efficiency. It smells like wet shoes and defeat. The kids watch silently, knowing better than to interrupt. You toss the bad straw into the yard. It'll freeze solid by nightfall. You replace it with fresh hay from your secret stash. Not much, just enough to make the pile passable. Then you add herbs, mint again, and a handful of something your grandmother once called sleep leaf. Could be a weed, could be magic. You're not taking chances. The baby sneezes. Everyone freezes. You touch his forehead. Cool. No fever. Yet. You exhale slowly. This is the dance. Every winter day. Find the threat. Smother it. Move on. You make a mental note. Today's task is heat retention, more repairs, more layers, more animals in the house if it comes to that. You prop the door open for a moment to let in light. The cold hits your face like a slap, but the air outside is still, the kind of stillness that hides danger. You scan the horizon. Smoke from every house, except one. Still that same chimney. No smoke. Your chest tightens. You call to your eldest. Get your boots. He groans. You fix him with a look. The one that says, "We don't leave people behind." He shuts up. You both wrap yourselves like winter onions and step outside. The snow crunches underfoot like stale crust. The wind isn't blowing, but the cold radiates up from the ground itself. Your eyelashes frost over. You don't blink. The house is only 2 fields away, but it feels like a mile. You knock on the door. No answer. You push it open. Inside, the hearth is cold. The beds are empty. But the table, there are plates, half-eaten, frost-glazed, still full. You step inside, scan the room. Then you see it. In the corner, under a pile of blankets, a shape, still, small. Your son inhales sharply. You don't let him move. You walk over slowly. The girl is alive, barely. You scoop her up. She's lighter than she should be. Bones and breath, but warm somehow. You wrap her in your cloak and carry her home. No one asks questions. The children make space by the fire. The goat head butts the chicken off the pillow. You wrap the girl in every spare cloth you own. She blinks. She's back. And just like that, your hut gains another soul. The cow moos once, like applause. You don't speak for a while. The girl lies wrapped like a scroll in the warmest corner of your house. She stares at the ceiling with wide, glassy eyes, blinking slowly like she's just returned from the far end of winter and isn't sure if she likes it here. You feed her broth, sip by painful sip. Her fingers twitch. Her lips crack. She swallows. That's enough. You don't press her with questions. Whatever happened, it left scars deeper than frostbite. She'll talk when she wants, or she won't. That's how things go. Your eldest hovers nearby, quiet. He keeps checking the fire, adding twigs, rearranging stones, as if flame alone could undo whatever silence followed that cold chimney. You rest your hand on his shoulder once, just once. That's all that's needed. The others resume their rhythms. The goat chews cud with unsettling focus. The chicken resumes pecking the spot where the dog once drooled. And the baby finally sleeps. Outside, the snow falls again, quietly this time. Gentle flakes, slow and endless, like someone shaking flour over the village from heaven. You step out for a moment, because now there's a funeral to consider. The girl wasn't alone in that house. She couldn't have been. Someone, her parents, maybe a sibling, left those bowls half-eaten, and they didn't make it. There's no way to say it gently. The village loses people every winter, usually the sick, the very old, or the unlucky. Sometimes it's all three. You've helped bury neighbors before. You remember their faces, the way the earth never gives back. Today, you gather a small group, quiet nods. No need for words, just glances and shared weight. You walk together, slow and heavy, toward the house. Inside, silence. The hearth is still cold. You find the others, 2 adults, 1 child, curled together like a question mark. No signs of panic, just the look of people who fell asleep expecting to wake. Historians still argue about the exact causes of medieval winter deaths, whether it was starvation, carbon monoxide, or disease. In this case, you think it was simply cold and no fire, and no one to check on them soon enough. You do what must be done. You wrap the bodies gently. You carry them out. There's a designated spot for this, a place beyond the field where the ground thaws just enough to dig. It takes hours. Your hands bleed. The shovel handle splinters. The wind picks up. You dig anyway. The burial is quiet. No prayers, you don't have the words today. Just a moment of silence, then snow settling over the fresh mound like a blanket you're too late to offer. You walk back in silence. Your joints ache. Your cheeks burn from wind and tears you refuse to wipe. But when you return, the fire is still alive, and the girl is sitting up, just a little. You crouch beside her. She whispers one word, "Thank you." You nod. You don't say, "You're safe now," because you both know that's not true. But you are warm, and that's what you can offer. You give her the rest of your broth. You use your cloak to patch her boots. You rearrange the sleeping pile so she gets the inner spot near the dog. Then you turn to your family, and you say simply, "We make room." They nod. No complaints, because everyone knows it could have been any of you. The rest of the day passes like smoke. The fire needs tending. The goat knocks over the water bucket. The roof patch leaks again. You fix what you can, ignore what you can't. But that night is different, because now there are 7, and 7 bodies hold more warmth than 6. That's math. That's survival. And maybe, just maybe, that's hope. You settle in. Same pile, same chicken on the same pillow, same goat snuggling your feet like an emotionally unavailable furnace. And one new soul, curled like a comma in the grammar of your family. You drift into sleep with your back against your spouse's, your foot near the fire, and your thoughts drifting toward spring. It's still months away. But tonight, you feel one step closer. The next morning, the girl doesn't cry. She just eats. Slowly, steadily, like someone remembering what it means to be hungry and not afraid of it. You sit nearby, pretending to patch a boot. You're not fooling anyone. You're watching her. The way her fingers tremble slightly when she lifts the spoon. The way her eyes flick around the room, landing briefly on each family member before retreating again. You recognize that look. It's not fear, it's inventory. She's trying to figure out how long she gets to stay. You don't say anything. You just slide her a small cloth-wrapped stone from the hearth. It's still warm. She presses it to her chest, closes her eyes. For a minute, she looks more like a girl and less like a shadow. Outside, the snow has stopped, for now, which means it's a work day. You gather the usual crew, your eldest, your spouse, and the chicken who follows you like it owns shares in the family. The girl stays behind, by the fire, with the baby and the dog, who has appointed himself her guard. You head to the woods. It's not far, half a mile, give or take, depending on how badly your knees behave. The trees stand tall and bare, skeletal silhouettes against the washed-out sky. You've been here before, so many times that you know each branch like a neighbor. That one's where you found the honeycomb last summer. That one split during the thunderstorm. That one hides the fox den you pretend not to know about. You search for fallen branches, dead wood. No one chops live trees unless desperate. It's bad luck. And besides, green wood smokes like a gossip and burns like guilt. You find a decent haul, thin branches, half-rotted twigs, even a thick limb you can't carry alone. Your eldest helps. Together, you drag it back, the sled bumping and squealing like a tired donkey. Back home, you lay the wood beside the hearth like offerings. You break the brittle ones for kindling. Stack the rest with care. The fire hisses in approval. Your spouse handles the water run today. The stream's not frozen, miraculously, but it's sluggish and moody. You've built a system, a small hole covered with reeds to stop it sealing over completely. You haul 2 buckets. Your spouse brings 3. You boil the first pot immediately. Water in winter is never taken for granted. You've heard stories, people drinking from stagnant puddles, getting sick, never recovering. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants truly understood germ theory. You don't need theories. You know the cold doesn't kill by itself. It sends disease ahead like a scout. Back inside, the girl speaks again. Just a whisper. "Can I help?" You nod. No fuss, no praise. Just hand her a cloth and show her how to scrub the pot clean. She's careful, her fingers still stiff. But she wants to be useful. That's how you know she'll make it. Lunch is root mash and stale barley bread, softened with broth. It tastes better today. You can't say why. Maybe because someone else survived to eat it. After the meal, the kids play near the hearth. They don't laugh. Winter has no room for loud joy, but they smile. They carve shapes into the soot-blackened wall with sticks. Someone draws a goat with antlers. Someone else adds a crown. Your spouse braids the girl's hair. Slowly, carefully. You watch as a loose tangle becomes something close to dignity. Then comes the noise. A knock. No, more like a thud. You freeze. Visitors in winter are rare. Unannounced ones, never good. You open the door slowly. It's a man, wrapped in furs so thick you can barely see his face. Behind him, a cart, 2 oxen, and, bundled under canvas, sacks. He introduces himself with a name you forget immediately. What matters is this: he's from the manor. He's collecting taxes. In winter, you resist the urge to laugh, or cry, or throw a turnip at him. You offer the usual excuse: no surplus, too much snow, animals sick, kids growing. He nods politely. Then he says, "They're sending collectors next week, official ones." You understand what that means. He's the warning. The storm is coming behind him. If you don't pay something now, they'll take what they can later, maybe the goat. Maybe worse, you barter 3 eggs, a cracked bowl of honey, a scrap of linen from your wedding bundle. He nods again, this time with less politeness and more pity. He leaves. The oxen's breath fogs in the air like ghosts. You close the door. Everyone's watching you. You say, "We have a week." No one cries. Everyone just nods. Because winter's not just about cold. It's about power. Theirs. Yours. Who has food? Who has leverage? Who can survive long enough to see green again? That night, you ration the stew tighter. You patch a crack in the door with the last scrap of waxed cloth. You rearrange the firewood stack, just to feel like you have control over something. And when it's time to sleep, you rearrange the snuggle pile. The girl is now in the middle, because that's where the warmest spot is. Because that's where family sleeps. Even when they arrived from silence, even when the tax man is on the road, even when spring feels as distant as the moon, you pull the cloak tighter and you whisper not a prayer, but a promise. We will make it through this. The fire cracks in answer. The dog exhales. The chicken lays another egg. Hope, it seems, is still legal for now. The snow returns that night, not as a storm, not yet, but like a quiet reminder that it never left. It taps on the roof, delicate and persistent, like a child trying to wake you without getting scolded. You stir just enough to notice it, then press your face into your spouse's shoulder and pretend you didn't. There's nothing you can do about snow in the dark. Let it fall. Let it blanket the world while you steal what little warmth sleep can offer. By morning, the door is frozen shut. You have to push it open with both hands, using your shoulder like a battering ram. It gives eventually, but not without a loud crack and a spray of powdered frost across your boots. The outside world has been erased. Every shape, every rut, every familiar path now sits under a smooth white layer, like icing on a cake you don't want to eat. The snow is thick and wet, dangerous. It hides holes. It weighs down roofs. It muffles the sound of everything. You step out cautiously, testing the snow with your foot. It's up to your knee. The air tastes clean and cruel. You begin your rounds. First, the roof. Always the roof. Snow this heavy can bring down a house. Not all at once, but slowly, like a hand pressing on your back every day until something breaks. You climb with a stick, and your breath fogging your vision. You scrape the snow off the ridge, letting it slide down in great hissing sheets. The thatch groans beneath you, but it holds, for now. The cold slips into your sleeves, your boots, your bones. Your toes go numb. You wiggle them inside your boots just to remind them they exist. You whisper encouragement to yourself between shovelfuls. Back inside, the girl is up, tending to the fire like she's always lived here. She's coaxed it into a healthy glow. She looks up when you enter, and you nod once. That's all it takes. You're building a language without words. You check your food stores. Not good. You do the math. In your head, then on the wall with charcoal. Barley. Enough for 5 days if you're careful. Beans. 2 more meals. Salt pork. Barely a whisper left. You stare at the numbers and pretend they're just shadows. Then you do what desperate people do. You plan the stew stone. It's a trick your grandmother taught you. You boil water with just enough scraps to give it color. Bones, roots, maybe 1 onion if you can spare it. Then, once everyone's distracted, you add a large, clean rock. Not to eat, but to fill the pot. People see a full pot, they feel full. It's stupid. It works. The dog gives you a look that says even he's not fooled. The chicken, however, seems delighted. She pecks at the edge of the rock like it owes her rent. Lunch is served with ceremony. Everyone gets a bowl. Everyone pretends it's hearty. No one complains. Even the baby slurps with noisy satisfaction. That's when the knock comes. Again. You freeze. This time, it's not a tax collector. It's worse. It's the Reeve. You open the door. He doesn't smile. He doesn't ask to come in. He just gestures toward the cart behind him. It's not empty. 2 villagers. Bodies. Frozen. You know them. They went looking for firewood yesterday. Alone. Took a risk. Paid for it. The Reeve doesn't speak for a long moment. Then he says, "We're collecting." You nod. The village has a practice, old as mud. If someone dies and their family can't dig, the others step in. You bury the dead together, because the living still owe them that. So you go again. Same shovel. Same frozen earth. Same ache in your spine that says, "Why is it always you?" The kids stay home this time. Your spouse tends to the fire. The girl watches the baby. The dog watches the girl. The chicken supervises. You walk to the edge of the village with the others. The ground is harder than before. You have to light a small fire over the spot just to thaw it. The smoke curls upward, thin and embarrassed. You dig for hours. You tell yourself stories while you work. Of spring. Of green things. Of markets and music and bread with actual flavor. You bury them side by side, and when it's done, you place a sprig of pine between them. It's all you have, a whisper of the trees they never made it back from. That night, No one eats much, not from lack of food, though that's part of it, but from the weight of silence. Grief is another mouth to feed. You don't have enough bowls. You sit by the fire. The girl sits beside you. She says softly, "They were my cousins." You nod. She says nothing else. You don't hug her, but you move a little closer. She doesn't move away. That's something. The fire pops. A log splits. The chicken lays yet another egg. You consider naming her Saint Yolko. Historians still argue whether peasant communities developed real emotional resilience or simply numbness. You suspect it's both. You hurt. You heal. You hurt again. Like muscles after labor, you bank the fire. You rearrange the straw. You press your back against your spouse's, your feet against the dog's fur, and your heart against the ache of 2 more names added to memory. You whisper to the girl, "Tomorrow we find more wood." She doesn't ask why. She knows. Because every day now is firewood, food, and trying not to be next. Section 11. Morning brings no sun. Just a pale gray smear in the sky, like someone tried to erase the clouds and gave up halfway. The snow stopped, but it left behind a world covered in silence so thick it presses on your ears like water. You rise carefully, your muscles protest, stiff from digging graves and hauling limbs. The dog is already up, shaking frost from his fur. The baby still sleeps, buried under 3 layers of wool and 1 of goat. You prod the fire. The coals glow faintly, buried under ash like secrets. You add twigs, whisper to it. It listens. The fire catches. That's your first victory of the day. You wake the eldest. No words, just a glance and a nod. He groans but rises. He knows what day it is. The wood run. You both bundle up. You layer rags over socks. Wrap your feet in straw. Then shove them into boots that were never made for snow this deep. You tie strips of leather around your wrists, ankles, and neck, any place the wind might find skin. Before you leave, you look to the girl. You're in charge. She nods, solemn as a priest. You and your son set off. The snow's deeper now. It swallows your calves with every step. The sled groans behind you like an old man mumbling in his sleep. You head to the southern copse. Less traveled, more wild. Fewer eyes, fewer fights over firewood. As you walk, your son asks, "Why do we keep helping people?" You don't answer immediately. You trudge a few more steps. Then you say, "Because someone helped us once." He nods but doesn't ask who. Maybe he remembers. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just understands that in a winter like this, survival is a chain, and someone has to be the link that holds. The forest greets you with brittle silence. Even the birds are gone, just bare branches, black against white, like a charcoal sketch of loneliness. You start gathering. You've done this so many times you barely think. Your hands move on instinct, snapping small limbs, rolling logs with your feet, testing bark for dryness. Your son finds a cache, an old beaver den with chewed stumps nearby. You both gather greedily. Wood is gold. Wood is heat. Wood is life. Then he finds the tracks. At first, you think they're fox prints. Then you see the spacing. Too wide. Not fox, wolf. And not just one. You look around slowly. The trees are too quiet, the snow too undisturbed. You crouch, whisper, "Don't run. Don't look scared." He nods. You stack the wood faster. Your heartbeat is a drum in your ears. You don't see the wolves, but you feel them, watching, waiting. Wolves don't attack often, not when humans travel in pairs. But it's a hard winter. Hungry things get brave. You load the sled in silence. You whisper to the trees, to the saints, to the wolves themselves. Not today. Not him. Not yet. And the forest answers with nothing, which is mercy. You drag the sled home without incident, but you don't breathe easy until you see your roof again, until you hear the goat bleating, until the dog barrels into your legs, tail wagging like he's trying to sweep the floor. You unload the wood with shaking hands. The girl watches. She doesn't ask. She just hands you warm broth. You sip. The warmth goes straight to your core, chasing out the cold that settled during the walk. Your spouse takes your gloves and starts rubbing your fingers, checking for frostbite. You try to pretend you're fine. You're not, but your fingers are still yours. That's something. You glance at your son. He gives you a half smile. You return it. Later that day, the girl speaks again, this time to your daughter. They sit by the fire, legs stretched toward the flame, sharing a piece of bread that's more crust than crumb. You pretend not to listen, but you catch pieces. My father had a red scarf. My sister used to sing to the chickens. I thought we'd wake up. You don't interrupt. You just add a log to the fire and stir the pot, slow and steady. That night, the stew is thicker, not because you found more food, but because your spouse remembered the last potato hidden behind the barrel, a soft one, with eyes, but not rotten. You carve out the bad parts, dice the rest, and for a few minutes, the room smells like hope. Historians still debate whether medieval peasants had family dinners the way modern people do. You'd argue that yes, you absolutely do. It just looks different. Less table, more floor, fewer plates. But the ritual is there. Warm bodies, shared food, a moment of stillness. After dinner, you let the kids tell stories. They aren't epic. Just strange little tales. A crow that stole buttons. A fox that could talk, but only lied. A child who planted soup and grew a stew tree. You laugh, genuinely, and so does the girl. The fire pops. The wind howls faintly outside. You're not safe, but you're together. You lie down in the pile again. This time, the dog insists on sleeping on your chest. You let him. The weight is oddly comforting. You listen to the others breathe. You count the beats between gusts of wind. You whisper to yourself, "One more day." Morning hits differently now. Not because it's warmer, it's not. If anything, the air feels sharper, slicing through the cracks in your wall like it's looking for excuses to stay. But today, there's movement, purpose, even a flicker of something dangerously close to joy. Because overnight, the girl sang, not a full song, not loudly, just a hum, a shaky, barely there whisper of melody while she stirred the coals and everyone else pretended to sleep. It was a tune you didn't recognize, something probably passed down through her family, like recipes or heirlooms or heartbreak. You didn't speak of it at breakfast. You didn't need to. Instead, you go about your day with that strange little tune stuck in your head, looping like a secret inside your ribcage. And that's how you know you're still human, because when all else has been stripped away, warmth, food, even safety, you still have songs. Today's goal is simple. Barter. Your stores are almost gone. You could stretch it another few days, maybe a week, but not if the snow turns again or another mouth ends up under your roof. You dress in your least patched cloak, still mostly holes, and fill a bag with your offerings. 2 eggs, a cracked comb made of bone, the tiny jar of honey you'd hidden behind the cow dung bricks for a real emergency, and, reluctantly, a scrap of dyed wool from your wedding. Not much, but enough to try. You walk to the village square, dragging the sled behind you. No ox, just your legs and what's left of your pride. The snow crunches beneath each step with the rhythm of someone walking not for survival, but for strategy. The square is quieter than usual. Only a few others braving the cold. A man with onions. A woman with a string of dried fish so thin they look like bookmarks. A boy with firewood he's clearly too young to carry. You nod to each. No one speaks at first. This is sacred ground. The barter ground. It's not a place for small talk. It's chess with crusts and kindling. You start with the woman. 2 eggs for the small fish. She hesitates, then nods. Fair. You move to the boy. Your father home. He shakes his head. Gone. You trade him a corner of the wool for 3 sticks of birch. You know it's a pity trade. You let it happen. The man with onions is harder. He has what you really want. Salt. Not much. Just a thimble's worth in a crumpled pouch. But salt in winter is sacred. You could trade a goat for that much. If you had one to spare, you offer the comb and the honey. He squints. You throw in the eggs. You shake your head. Gone. He chews his lip, then shrugs. Deal. It's a small victory. But in a winter like this, small victories are gold-leafed miracles. You return home, sled a little heavier, stomach already planning how to stretch those fish into something resembling soup. You walk into the house and announce, "We barter well today." The kids cheer softly. Even the dog lets out a satisfied grunt as if he brokered the deal himself. You prep dinner with theatrical flair, crumbling the fish into the pot, seasoning it with a single grain of salt per child. It's not much, it's enough. While the stew simmers, your spouse unrolls a bundle of leather scraps they've been hoarding. Shoe patches mostly, but enough for mittens too. They start sewing. The girl joins them. You watch, pretending not to cry when she threads her own needle. That night, the stew is good. Better than it should be. Not just because of the salt, but because of how everyone holds their bowl like it's a gift, not a meal. Because of the warmth from the fire. Because the girl laughs, just once, short and strange, like a door creaking open in her chest. Historians still argue whether peasants ever had moments of levity in winter, whether there was time to laugh between the digging and dying. You'd argue this moment proves they did, or at least they made time for it. They had to. After dinner, you find yourself telling a story, not one of survival or saints, a ridiculous one, about the time the goat got stuck in the fence and you had to bribe it out with half a carrot and your dignity. Everyone laughs, even the goat. Well, she sneezes, but you take it as agreement. You feel human, not just a creature clinging to warmth, but a person, a storyteller, a parent, a patcher of boots and mender of morale. You settle in for the night. The usual configuration, except tonight, the girl doesn't take the warmest spot. She gives it to your youngest, tucking the blanket tighter around them before lying beside the dog. You see it. You say nothing. But later, once the room is still and the fire is just a heartbeat in the ash, you reach over and pull your old cloak up over her shoulder. You whisper, "You're ours now." She doesn't answer, but she doesn't move away either. And that's more than enough. Snow again. Because of course, it's snow again. You wake to the sound of it slipping off the roof in thick, wet clumps, like the hut itself is trying to shed winter in frustration. You can hear it. Schlump, thud, sigh, falling around you. The weight of it threatens to bring the whole structure down. But for now, it holds. Barely. You rise. Slowly, every joint clicks, every muscle whines, but the fire is still alive, flickering, tired, but stubborn. Like you. The girl is already up. She's boiling water for tea. Not real tea, of course, just bark and herbs and hope. But it smells good, sharp and clean. She smiles when she sees you, and you return it, though your face doesn't quite know how to do that anymore. You sit by the fire, wrapping your hands around the cup she hands you. It's warm. That's what matters. Breakfast is thin. The last of the barley, a handful of dried greens. You pretend it's filling. The children pretend to be full. Even the goat seems to chew slower, as if savoring a meal that's mostly imagination. You stare at the wall and begin to plan. Spring is still weeks away. The stores are gone. You've foraged every useful root within a mile. Your boots have more patches than leather, and the manor hasn't sent word since the tax warning. That silence makes you nervous, because when the manor's quiet, it's usually thinking. And when it thinks, peasants suffer. You call a family meeting. It's not as dramatic as it sounds. Just a huddle around the fire, everyone wrapped in blankets, holding cups, faces serious. We need a plan, you say. Your spouse nods. The eldest perks up. The girl leans forward, clutching the chicken like it's a worry stone. You suggest the trap lines. They're dangerous this time of year, hidden under snow, sometimes iced over, but they might yield rabbits, or even a hare. Meat, protein, survival. Your eldest offers to go. So does the girl. You hesitate, but you agree. You make them promise to stay together. You send the dog too, because he's loud and clever and protective in ways you can't teach. They bundle up. You give them each a crust of bread and a pouch of ash to mark their path. You watch them disappear into the woods. Two shadows and a dog, swallowed by white. Back at the hut, you wait. You try to fix the roof. Again. You check on the goat, who is now trying to climb the water barrel like it holds answers. You teach the younger ones a game with stones and string, something your mother once showed you. But mostly, you wait. And wait. And wait. By mid-afternoon, your nerves are splinters. Then, the bark of the dog. Then, figures in the snow. Then, laughter. You rush to the door, heart slamming. They've returned, with 2 rabbits. Thin, but real. Still warm. The girl is smiling. Your eldest is beaming like he's just won a knight's tournament. The dog looks smug, like he made the kill himself. You hug them both, tightly, without a word. That night, dinner is rich. By peasant standards anyway. Rabbit stew flavored with salt, herbs, and the last of your onion. The smell alone makes everyone giddy. You swear the chicken lays 2 eggs out of excitement. You eat slowly, carefully. Every bite a treasure. Every spoonful an act of worship. And after full and warm, someone suggests music. Not real music, but tapping on bowls, humming, clapping softly. The girl starts it. Then the youngest joins. Then all of you. It's not perfect. It's not even good. But it feels like something that once had a name. Joy. You let it happen. Even the goat seems to sway slightly. The dog rolls over and snores through it. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had time for leisure or celebration. But here, in this hut, with rabbit on your breath and laughter in your ears, the answer is obvious. You make time for joy, or you don't make it at all. After the music fades, the girl pulls out a scrap of cloth and starts stitching something. You peek. It's a doll, stuffed with hay. Eyes made of thread knots. A little ridiculous, but beautiful. She hands it to the youngest. I had one like this, she whispers. The child clutches it like treasure, and just like that, something shifts. The girl is no longer just the girl, she's sister now. And that's more powerful than food. You lie down with the usual tangle of limbs and blankets. You think of rabbits and dolls and music. You whisper, "We might just make it." And for once, you believe it. You don't expect the knock. It's too late for visitors, too cold for messengers, too quiet for anything official, but it comes anyway. 3 soft thuds like someone politely asking to borrow a miracle. You open the door slowly. It's a man, middle-aged, wrapped in layered cloaks that look better than yours but still worn thin. Behind him, a small cart, a sack, and, barely visible, a symbol stitched onto his sleeve, the Manor's mark. He speaks quickly, voice tight from cold and obligation. "The tax collectors won't come this month," he says. "Too many lost in the storm. They'll try again in spring." You blink. That's it? He nods once, as if this single sentence carries the weight of 10 commandments, then turns and leaves without waiting for thanks. You close the door and turn to your family. "They're not coming," you say. At first, silence, then relief. Not joy. Exactly. Just a soft exhale that seems to lift the room slightly off its foundations. Because now you can breathe. Not fully, not deeply, but enough. Your spouse slumps against the wall and lets out a sound that might be a laugh or a sob, or both. The children keep eating their bread, like nothing happened, but even they seem lighter. The girl looks at you and offers the smallest smile you've seen yet, but it reaches her eyes. That night, no one has to sleep with one eye open. You all pile in together as usual, but this time it feels like a choice. You sleep deeper, dream longer. You wake to light, real light, sunlight. It cuts through the window like a golden blade, bouncing off the soot and ash and waking every sense in your body. You sit up. The sky is blue, not gray, not white, blue. It's been weeks since you saw a sky that wasn't the color of exhaustion. You step outside, carefully, cautiously, like the sun might change its mind. The snow is still there, deep and wide, but it sparkles now. The wind has stilled. The trees no longer shiver in fear. You call the children. You call everyone. You point at the sky. No one says anything, but you all stare, because that light, that color, it's a promise. You gather water, chop more wood, hang wet clothes outside, knowing they'll freeze, but also knowing they might thaw tomorrow. It's not spring, not yet, but it's close enough to pretend. Later that day, you do something reckless. You'll let the children play outside, only for a little while, only in the yard, but still outside. They tumble into the snow like puppies. They throw handfuls at each other. They shriek and laugh and fall and get up and fall again. The girl joins, at first cautiously, then running. The dog chases her. She chases the goat. The goat chases no one because she is above it all. You watch from the doorway. You smile, not because the hunger is gone, or the cold, or the uncertainty, but because they're playing. And that's the most rebellious thing anyone can do in a winter like this. Act like it won't win. Historians still argue whether peasants celebrated small victories, whether the ordinary poor ever found reason to rejoice amid survival. They debate whether laughter counted as resistance. Let them argue. You know, because today, you let them play. You even laugh once when the girl throws a snowball at the goat, and it somehow hits you instead. Your spouse laughs too, harder than you've seen in months. The dog howls along. The chicken runs for her life, convinced the world has finally ended. Inside, the fire burns low but steady. The stew simmers quietly. No one is sick. No one is missing. You are not winning, exactly, but you are not losing. And that, in winter, is victory. That evening, you sit with your eldest near the fire. He's quieter than usual, staring into the flames with an intensity that says his thoughts are already reaching toward spring planting. He asks, "Will we ever leave?" You consider it. The village, the hut, the snow, the endless grind of survival. You say, "Maybe, but only if there's something better." He nods, and you let the silence sit between you, warm and kind, like a blanket you finally don't have to share. The girl braids the youngest's hair. Your spouse mends the dog's torn collar. The goat chews straw with philosophical intensity. And you sit there, tired, grateful, alive. The thaw begins with a sound, not a bird song, not yet, but the creak of dripping water sliding off the roof, the soft pitter-patter of melt finding gravity again, tiny rivulets forming at the edges of snowbanks, carving hopeful trails through months of silence. You wake to it. You lie still, just listening. It's almost musical and terrifying, because you know this part. The false spring. The trick of warmth before the final freeze. It lures people outside, tempts them into mistakes. Coats unbuttoned, boots swapped for slippers, illness waiting behind a cough. But still, it's beautiful. You rise and push open the door. It no longer sticks. That alone feels like a gift. Outside, the snow is retreating, not fleeing, but surrendering in patches. The yard is a battlefield of white, brown, and promise. You can even see a sliver of the path again. Just dirt. Real, glorious, muddy dirt. You take a deep breath. It smells wet and green. Underneath everything, life has waited. You spend the morning checking traps, not for rabbits this time, but for signs, tracks, buds, anything that might whisper, soon. The forest is still cautious, but not dead. A bird flits overhead, just one, tiny, brown, loud as a cathedral. You return home smiling. Your spouse is airing blankets. The girl is sweeping, humming the same song she hummed weeks ago, but now with rhythm. The dog's tail wags even while asleep. The children are playing again, inventing a game involving snowballs, a wooden spoon, and the vague threat of goat interference. You sit down, and you begin to write on the inside wall with charcoal. Not a prayer, not a warning, just instructions. Where to find the good kindling, how to pack the snow bricks without gaps, how many coals you need to last the night, why the corner behind the stove always molds, which saints to whisper to when the cold gets inside your teeth. Your eldest joins you, adds notes in his own crooked hand. The trick to snaring a hare without snapping the wire, where the fox likes to sleep, how to bank the fire like grandmother did. The girl adds something too, just one word, sing. You underline it 3 times, because legacy isn't just land or livestock, it's knowledge, warmth passed down like wool cloaks, lessons carved in soot, memory you can live inside. Later that day, a neighbor comes by, just to talk, not to beg, not to barter, to share. He brings news. A calf born at the southern farm. 2 kids survived the pox. The priest thinks the river might thaw by week's end. He also brings seeds, wrapped in old cloth, rough and precious. You almost cry. Instead, you offer him stew. It's thin, but it's hot. And it's honest. The children gather close as he tells a joke. It's bad. It lands beautifully. That night, you pull out the planting tools. Rusty, bent, beloved. You line them up beside the door, like soldiers waiting for orders. Spring is not here yet, but it is on the map. You go to bed early, full, not in your belly, exactly, but in your heart, in your bones. You dream of earth, of green, of days without frost between your toes, of singing and steam and a hut that never leaks again. You're still here. That's what matters. Not how many days you went hungry, not how many nights you slept on a bed made of straw, bones aching from cold and silence. What matters is that somehow, through the blizzards and the hunger and the knock at the door, you endured. And not just you, your family, the girl, the dog, even the goat with the questionable attitude. Together, you outlasted a season that tried its best to break you. It didn't. And now, as the snow thins and the birds return, and the smoke from your neighbor's chimney drifts higher, you feel something stirring that you almost forgot how to name. Hope. It doesn't arrive all at once. It never does. It arrives in pieces, in the drip of meltwater, in the warmth of a pot that boils without constant supervision, in the way the girl laughs without looking over her shoulder, in the tiny, ridiculous doll still clutched in your child's hand. These are not grand victories, but they are yours. And they're enough. Because sometimes surviving isn't about overcoming, it's about holding on, about whispering stories when your throat is sore, about carving memories into wood because parchment costs too much, about teaching someone to braid hair while the snow piles up against the door. And now, as the fire softens and the shadows stretch across the straw, you know the worst has passed. It might come again. It probably will. But you've lived through it once. And that memory, that legacy, will carry forward in the stories, in the songs, in the warmth of bodies pressed together under a shared blanket. You close your eyes. You feel the hut breathe with you, slowly, steadily, alive. Sleep now. Spring is coming. You've earned it. Good night.